let's talk about fall knitting plans. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel by MWoo. I'm MWoo, aka Marianne, and we're talking about fall plans today, specifically knitting plans. I've been meaning to film this video for quite some time now. I got a little derailed by personal life things. I've just been a little busy, and then on top of that we had really hot weather like a week and a half ago that was sucking all the fallness out of me. It has since cooled down a little bit. The tree outside my window, which is a maple tree, is like finally getting the like more red, yellow, green tone vibes. So the fall spirit is in the air and I'm ready to talk about fall plans. I feel like this video is coming out really late because I feel like a lot of people who post these videos have already posted. But to my defense, in the Northern Hemisphere, I don't consider fall starting technically until like September 20th, 21st, when the actual first day of fall is. And so I think I'm right on time. I think when I post this video, it would have just officially turned into the fall season. So that's my excuse if anyone is asking why I'm late. To be totally honest, fall is usually not my favorite season. I think it really hits me hard when the days get shorter and the geese fly away and all the leaves fall off of the trees. But this year, I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic. I think owning Jube and engaging with the knitting community has brightened my spirits a little bit. Jube loves the cold weather so much more than the summertime, and so it's really fun seeing her just run around in the cool. And like, she's not a big like lover of jumping into leaf piles, but she definitely like enjoys watching them fall off of the trees. And then I wasn't knitting this time last year, so this is my first fall in the like knitting community, and I definitely see the appeal of knitting for fall and winter weather. A little bit of a caveat for this video is two parts. One is this is not really going to be a fall inspo video. This is kind of like my actual plans that I currently have. And two, this may also be kind of like my fall winter plans because I usually plan more temperaturely, if that makes sense, than seasonally. So in my opinion, a lot of the stuff that I'm knitting or have plans to be knitting for the fall could easily transition into the winter time. And so if December comes when winter officially starts and I still have a lot on my list to do, I will just continue on through into the winter months. Last but not least, I really tried to incorporate more color this time, but it turns out that these 4 months are just gonna be my season of green. There's like a pop of color here and then a pop of color there that I'm not even gonna talk about because it's for like my Christmas knitting. But yeah, most of the stuff is going to be brown or green. I really tried, but I just seem to gravitate towards those, which we're not gonna fight it. We're just gonna enjoy all of that. So there's gonna be a lot of green yarn either visually presented here or talked about. So yeah, if green's not your vibe, I hope you enjoy the patterns anyway. Without further ado, I'll get straight into my plans. So the first one is my newest addition to my fall list, and that is the Lily Frill sweater by Camille, also known as Massimi on Instagram. And the reason why this is the newest one is because it's actually a test knit. This is actually my very first test knit, and so I'm beyond excited, and it's kind of like the kickoff to the fall season for me. Even though it's not technically like a fall specific vibe, you could probably make this for the spring and the summertime too. But anyways, so like I said, it's a test knit for kind of like a crew neck construction sweater. And the special detailing that it has on it is that it's gonna have this kind of sheer-ish vibe in a triangle shape on the chest with a little bit of a frill. And it's a mohair sweater that is primarily held double with some sections held single, and it just is so feminine and cute, and I am beyond excited. So I personally am test knitting the extra small for her, and this test knit is going into October. I think the pattern release is aiming for end of October if I'm not mistaken, so if it's a sweater that interests you guys, you can definitely cast it on this fall if you guys want to. Like I said, it's a mohair sweater with 2 strands of mohair held double for most of it, knit on 4mm needles. I am personally using the Drops Kids Silk in the color, where is it? 37. It's this really pretty like green blue color. I am in love with it. It really reminds me of blue spruce evergreens, if you guys are familiar with that tree. Depending on the lighting, it gives more of a forest green vibe, and it can even like kind of give you more of a blue vibe. It really reminds me of both Napa, who, if you guys don't know, is my pet parrot. She kind of also has like this blue-green vibe going on, as well as my engagement ring, which is like, I don't know if you can see. Ooh, that's really bright. It's like, depending on the light, it changes color. So I clearly have a really big preference for this like color changing blue-green, and I'm so excited to knit up this sweater in this. I won't go into too much detail because I do plan on filming a whole process video for that, but I did cast it on the other day, and I can show you what I have so far. So this is the start of the sweater. It's a really interesting construction. It's top down, where you start with the back yoke, pick up the shoulders, do the front yoke, and then knit in the round. I guess that's not really interesting. That's like a very normal way for people to do sweaters that is not raglan or in the round or circular yoking. Anyways, but this is what I have so far. I love the texture, I love the color. Also, I don't know if I mentioned, this is my first time using Drops Kid Silk. Heard a lot of good things. So far, so good. I don't know how it will wear, but I'm really happy with like the overall feeling of it right now. And shout out to my Twizzle, who's holding my 2 mohair balls together, because mohair is not fun to deal with when it's tangled. So this is keeping me organized for the time being. The last thing I want to mention about this pattern before moving on is that it will be available in both French and English. I'm test knitting the English one because I'm not that great in French. But yeah, both of them are options if you guys are interested. The second knit that I'll be working on this fall is actually one that I've already casted on. I've gotten quite far in it, and it's the Sille sweater by PetiteKnit. I knew that I wanted to cast on a slipover this fall pretty early on. I just think that they're such good transitional pieces. They kind of give you the warm sweater cozy vibe without being like a full-on sweater, so you can still wear it on those like relatively warmer fall days. And also it's just a vibe. I know that I think they're more traditionally like connected with preppy vibes, at least in the North American sense. That's how they advertise it to you. I think like when I think of it, I think like Ralph Lauren. That's the only company coming to mind right now. I don't know if you are picking up what I'm putting down, but nevertheless, when I saw this pattern, I knew that it was the one I was going to be working on this fall because it just has this really beautiful like textured detailing on it. It's all done in purl bumps, and it has this repeating rows of like an alternating knit purl as well as like this V shape all throughout. And I think it's so clean, so classic, and just the right amount of like eye-catching texture without being annoying. For some pattern detailings, this is an interesting one because on Ravelry it says it's a worsted weight pattern, which all of the project pages and even the sample yarn that she uses is saying that it's DK. I just went with the DK vibes. It's been working well. It's on 4mm needles, which, like I said, everything is saying that it's DK. I think it was mislabeled, which is a little unfortunate because it can be very misleading. I was very confused when I was first trying to like figure out this pattern. I actually originally wanted to do it with my Make It Tweed held with like a cream color, but I thought that was going to be too busy. So instead I transitioned into this more like brown, gray, beige, a grayish, I don't know how to describe it, Sandnes Garn Perfect that I found online. This specifically is the color 2650, and it's this really, really pretty like brown, gray, beige vibe. I love that it's like not a solid tone, and yeah, it knits up really nicely. I won't talk about this one too much because I am filming a knitting process vlog, And I'm not sure when I'll be posting that because it's obviously not done yet, but it's been a pretty good knit so far. I messed up a lot, not because of the pattern, just because I didn't give it as much attention as I should have while I was working on the especially the flat knitting part. But now that I've connected in the round, it's been really smooth sailing since then. Last thing I want to say about this pattern before moving on is that it's available in extra small to 4XL, which I think covers bust circumference of like 90 centimeters to 130 centimeters, approximately like that. I am personally knitting the extra small version. Oh, sorry. The very last thing I wanted to say about this too is, I also mentioned it in the vlog, but this perfect yarn is 80% wool, 20% nylon. And while I've worked with that combination of yarn for sock yarn before, this one has more of like an acrylic vibe that I was not anticipating. If you guys have followed me for a while, you know that acrylic and I are not the bestest of friends. I can't say it's enough to bother me, but it's enough that I've noticed. I am not too worried about the final product because I did make a swatch, I blocked it, and the fabric turned out beautifully. But yeah, there's just something about this yarn that when I'm knitting with it, it reminds me of acrylic. And not in a good or bad way, it just, there's some sort of resemblance that I can't quite put my finger on. But other than that, I think it's a lovely yarn. Relatively affordable. I did get mine on sale, so that's a little bit of a bias, and it comes in a lot of pretty colors. That's Sandnes Garn for you. Pattern number 4 is a cardigan, and that is the Myosotis by Sandrine C. It is this really beautiful DK weight cardigan that has lace detailing on the sides of the button band, and I think it is stunning. It's just the right amount of like visual interest without being too obnoxious, and I think it would be a great addition to my wardrobe. So as I said, it's a DK weight cardigan. Her recommendation is to hold it with Knitting for Olive merino with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, and it's knit on size 4mm needles. I don't know if you've noticed, there seems to be a trend this fall for DK weight, and I think DK weight's like a good middle ground to like fast enough knits while also still looking like very store-bought professional. This cardigan comes in sizes 1 to 9, which is for roughly bust 97 to 100 and I want to say like 60 or something, I don't remember, with recommended like 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease. When I decided that I wanted to knit this one up, I knew I didn't really want to do something held with mohair, just because I am currently working on my Mauricia cardigan, which is the Knitting for Olive merino I'm holding it with Sandnes Garn silk mohair. And it's a vibe, but I wanted something that wasn't fuzzy. And so when my local yarn store had a sale, I went in being like, okay, I'm looking for a DK weight yarn, preferably in like an orange, mustardy yellow kind of vibe. That was the original vision that I had for this. I walked out with a DK weight yarn in green. So as I said, this is the season of green for me, and I'll be knitting this in the Katia Merino-Seda in the color 71, which is this really beautiful like sage green, and it has this really beautiful like white thread throughout because this is 52% virgin wool and 48% silk. I was originally going to cast this on first, kind of more of a transitional piece because it has some plant fiber in it, but it kind of fell to the bottom once I got that test knit and the Slipover started. I think I might do this one next, but I'm not too sure. The next sweater is one that I've talked about in the past on my channel, and that is the Step by Step sweater by Florence Millar. This is a free Aran weight sweater that Florence Millar, aka Handmade by Florence on Instagram and YouTube, released, and it is supposed to be like a really beginner friendly sweater that she actually has an accompany YouTube tutorial on it if any of you guys are interested. I wanted to knit it up because it just looks like a very timeless piece, and she gives both options to do one without short row shaping, one with short row shaping, and she has both a sample knit as like a solid one versus a striped one. And so while I was looking through the project pages a while back, I saw this one that Katie Does Knits did, and she called it her coffee stripe sweater, and it was glorious. She did it in fisherman's wool, and it was like alternating stripes of like a dark and a semi-dark brown with kind of like a gray, like oatmeal color striping in between. And so my plan is to recreate that. When I went to Seattle, I picked up the fisherman wool. So this is in the color oatmeal. This one here is in the color brown heather. And then this last one, I think is, the label got ripped off, but I think if I recall correctly is nature's brown. And they're just gonna create this really beautiful brown toned sweater that I am so excited about. I've been meaning to cast it on. It's just, fisherman wool is like untreated, 100% wool. Like when I opened up the bin that I stored it, like the lanolin smell just like punches you in the face. So it felt a little weird to cast it on like spring, summertime, but I definitely like closing my eyes and smelling this, like it just feels like fall time on a farm, you know? So I'm really excited for this one. I have been thinking about it for a while and can't wait to actually cast it on. A few details about that pattern is that, like I said, it's a free pattern on Ravelry. She has sizes A to G, which covers busts of 90 to 140. I think she actually announced recently that she's planning on adding 2 more sizes to be a little bit more size inclusive, which is great. And yeah, I suspect it should be very smooth sailing. I haven't watched the tutorial, but I did skim over the pattern and it seems to be very well written, and that tutorial has over 400,000 like views. So it just makes me so giddy to think about all the people making their potentially first sweaters. And yeah, I have like chaotic cast on energy filming this. So we're gonna hold off, but we're gonna do it this fall. We're getting close to the end. There's only 2 more left to talk about, but the next one is a cable knit sweater. And this, I've been thinking about doing a cable knit sweater ever since I started knitting, but they've always felt a little too unattainable and intimidating because there's just so much going on. But over the course of the last little bit, I've been slowly working up into like charted patterns as well as just like a little bit more complicated things, and so I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident, and so this fall I'm going to try to tackle a cable sweater. The one that I'm specifically looking at is the Arctic Light sweater by Veronika Lindberg. I think I talked about this one in my stash organization video. I was originally gonna make it with Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in like a sage green color. I actually ended up giving that yarn to my sister because I think I mentioned in that video that I was like, oh, I think my sister will really like this, and she messaged me after that. She's like, I do really like that. So I ended up giving it to her, which was a perfect excuse to get new yarn because realistically I was thinking about this a little bit more, and I wanted to do a cable knit sweater as kind of like an homage to this sweater that I had when I was a child. I will talk about that whole backstory in a second. Just gonna give you a quick rundown on the pattern specs, which is that it is, I think it's a heavy DK sweater, maybe Erin. I don't know where the definition comes in, but her recommendation is to knit it with Sandnes Garn Double Sunday held with a mohair, and it is done on 5.5mm needles. Her pattern sizes is an extra small to a 3XL, I believe, which covers around like a bust of 93.5 to, I want to say 158 centimeters, something like that if I'm not mistaken. The recommendation for this is to have 5 to 15 centimeters of positive ease. I've heard a lot of good things about this sweater. The pattern on Ravelry has a lot of projects, which seems to be a good sign given that it is a cable knit sweater. And Veronika has posted tutorials on this. I think she has 3 parts for this one, so definitely is a more beginner friendly of a cable knit sweater because it has that guidance there. Going back to the plans of this, I wanted to do an homage to this childhood sweater that I had. I actually still have it, and surprisingly I can kind of still wear it, but it's this gorgeous blue cabled sweater that I've had since honestly I was like 7 or something, maybe like 20-ish years ago. And it's this kind of got like V detailing with some like bumps. I don't even know how to describe it, but I adore the sweater. I love the color. It's just so bright and fun. And like I said, I can still kind of fit it. It doesn't fit the way it's supposed to anymore. As you can see, the arms are a little short, but I love it, and I wanted to make not a replica, but something similar. So I thought, what better way than to do a cable knit sweater in kind of this cerulean-ish blue. I don't even know if this is cerulean. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only reason I know of that word is because of The Devil Wears Prada and the whole cerulean sweater monologue. If you know what I'm talking about, give me a thumbs up or a comment below, because I love The Devil Wears Prada. Even though watching it now, I recognize how toxic it is, but we ignore that and just enjoy the vibes and the chaotic. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. So yeah, when I was in Toronto, my mission when we were visiting the village loft was to find a blue yarn that would be similar enough to this that I could knit that sweater in. It was such a journey because either the ones that I liked and would hit gauge were like way too expensive, or it wasn't the right color blue I was thinking about, or it wouldn't hit gauge if it was the right blue. I spent like, honestly, felt like 3 hours in that store. It probably wasn't that long, but it felt like forever, and I was getting a little flustered, but I did end up deciding on what I wanted, and that was going to be the, I'm gonna butcher this, the Rerum Natura Pénélope in the color Mesange, I believe, which is a really similar blue to this, held with Pascuali's mohair. I don't remember the exact name of the mohair in like 215. I'll insert a photo of like the combination here. I didn't end up buying it that trip because I was told that a sale was coming, so I figured I have so many knitting plans so far, I could probably afford to wait until that sale. But really excited about that. I think the sweater is gorgeous. It's a really approachable cabled sweater. Like, it looks very modern despite it having very like cabled, a lot of cable motifs on it. And before people say like, oh, why didn't you do like the Moby sweater or the Ingrid sweater? It wasn't traditional cable enough for me, if that makes sense. So yeah, excited to cast that on. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about is that I've heard a lot that this pattern doesn't have short row shaping in either like the back for the front neck or like on the shoulder sides. So the pattern kind of looks like it comes out really aggressively, which this one does too. I was looking at this one, the way it just like starts out. So I'm not too worried about the shoulders, but I definitely want to find a way to incorporate short row shaping into the neckline because the high neck would definitely bother me. So I'm thinking about vlogging that process while I try to figure that out, as well as just the journey of going through my first cable knit. The only like non-green that I have planned, minus the brown step-by-step pattern. But really excited for this one. I think I've said that about all of them. I'm really excited about all the patterns. We're getting to the end. So the last one is a sweater pattern that has the least amount of thought gone into it. It's currently still a vision in my head, but I have a general direction that I want to go. And that is something called, what I'm currently calling my fireworks yoke sweater. And essentially I have this vision in my head for a sweater that has like kind of like protruding like stripes in kind of like a firework exploding fashion on the yoke. An intro into colorwork sweaters. I don't know if that's too ambitious. To be totally honest, I don't even have like a fully fleshed vision. I really need to sit down and like sketch it out, but I definitely want to make something of that sort sometime in the foreseeable future. The things that I do know about it is that I do want it to be DK weight, and I am definitely going to be using the TinCanKnits Strange Brew pattern thing. I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like a recipe book that they have. And I bought this recipe book a while ago. It is expensive. I think it was like 30 Canadian dollars, but it definitely is worth it. It's essentially a 30+ page of just like formulations of how to derive your own colored yoke sweater, which I think is so genius and so much fun. It walks you through whether you want to do top down, bottom up. It has all the sizes from infant to like 12-year-olds, extra small to extra like 3XL women's, extra small to 3XL men's, and it covers like if you want to do sock yarn, DK weight, or like a worsted weight. It's so comprehensive. I am so excited to dig my hands into that and work on that a little bit more and just have a more of a like 100%, well not 100% because it will be using the TinCanKnits, but like kind of more of like a from scratch trying to design a sweater that doesn't pre-exist. It might exist, but I'm just gonna try because I have this vibe in my head that I'm gonna try to recreate. While I was at the knitting loft, I was also just looking for yarn that I might want to hold together for that color works yoke sweater, and I think I settled on some double Sunday from Sandnes Garn in like 1015, which is the same color code that I'm using for my silk mohair held in my Mauricia cardigan, which is like this off-white beige, and surprise, surprise, a green. This one, I don't remember the color code of it, but it's not quite as bright as a sage. There's a dog going off. Not as like muted as this one. It's a little darker, but not quite a forest green. I'll also insert a photo of it here because I am probably gonna order that when the sale happens. So those are all my plans. I feel like that's a lot. There's a lot of sweaters. I actually surprisingly have never knit like a full-on crew neck before. The closest heavyweight thing that I've knit is the Fab cardigan by Clara Eggers back at the beginning of the year. And then by the time I was transitioning more into garments after that, it was kind of spring, summer. So I've been really focused on t-shirts and tank tops. So I'm really excited to actually just delve straight into the quintessential sweater knitting process. Let me know if you guys have fall knitting plans. I feel like most people have thought about what they want to knit for fall because it's so different from the spring and summer times. And hopefully one of these patterns inspired you. If you guys have a color theme going into the next season, let me know. I know that some people are really leaning into like the burnt orange, which is a really fun color. I unintentionally, like I said, chose green. And if you guys have a color, let me know. Maybe that will inspire me for my sweaters later on. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.